What if the plastic bag ban you thought was saving the planet actually pushed environmental costs elsewhere? Imagine this. In just 3 months after Australia's supermarkets ditched free bags, plastic bag use dropped by a staggering 80%, 1.5 billion fewer bags in circulation. But behind this dramatic win lies a tangle of hidden costs, trade-offs, and surprising backfires. Are we solving one problem only to create new ones? The truth about bag bans is far more complicated and much more important for all of us than most headlines ever reveal. Decades ago, thin single-use plastic bags were everywhere in Australia. They were the symbol of effortless shopping, but also of a mounting global crisis. Plastics choking rivers, oceans, and even our food. By 2009, public concern tipped over. South Australia led the charge, enacting a statewide ban, and this wave swept across the country. By 2021, even New South Wales, the last holdout, had outlawed the lightweight bags that once overflowed city drains and littered coastlines.
Supermarket giants, Woolworths and Coles, jumped ahead of politicians and ditched free plastic bags in 2018. They pushed customers toward thicker, reusable plastics or paper options. Bags now cost anywhere from 15 to 99 cents each. Almost overnight, shoppers had to put cash down for something they'd taken for granted for generations.
In statistical terms, the change was seismic. Within months, the National Retail Association reported a breathtaking 80% plunge in bag use. That's 1.5 billion fewer flimsy plastics fluttering across parks and beaches. Globally, similar charges and bans have been just as dramatic. England's 5p bag fee slashed supermarket plastic bags by 98%. Ireland's steady levy drove usage down more than 90%.
But scratch a little deeper, and the numbers tell a murkier, even contradictory story. In Canberra, Australia's policy test lab, when thin bags vanished, consumers simply switched to heavier, reusable bags, using them for trash or shopping, often just once. Over 7 years, the net reduction in plastic was only 275 tons, barely more than a single pre-ban year's bag use. In other words, when one form of plastic is banned, another form quietly fills the void. And while a national survey found 39% less coastal plastic debris than a decade ago, it credited multiple actions, cleanup drives, other bans, and broader anti-litter campaigns as the real drivers, not just the bag ban alone.
Replacing plastics has its own steep costs. Life cycle assessments, which weigh water, fuel, land, and pollution, paint a sobering picture. Paper bags, for all their eco-friendly reputation, use up to 17 times more water and over 50% more fossil fuel per equivalent use compared to thin plastic. One study found that producing 1,500 plastic bags consumed 58 gallons of water. To replace them with paper? Over 1,000 gallons. Add in tree loss, 24 trees for every ton of paper bags, and air and water pollution spiking by up to 70%. Suddenly, fixing marine plastic means heavier tolls on forests and the global climate. Even cotton eco-totes, unless reused hundreds of times, leave a bigger carbon footprint.
Does this mean the bans failed? Not entirely. Critics argue these trade-offs cut deep. Proponents counter that billions of bags out of circulation is a win, however partial. CSIRO's latest research backs them, linking bag bans with cleaner urban beaches and habit shifts. Most Australians now remember their own bags and think twice before discarding waste.
The economic story adds another twist. For big retailers, banning the giveaway was a jackpot. Supermarkets saved $170 million a year and made another $70 million just selling new bags. Margins grew, but at the checkout, costs shifted fast. Australians grumbled about being nickel-and-dimed. A U.S. study found that fees and purchases added about $7.70 per year to each household's costs, a small sum, but one that's painfully visible when every transaction now pinches.
On a broader societal scale, the effects ripple further. Manufacturing jobs in the local plastic industry withered. Globally, estimates warn of up to 1.45 million job losses and $350 billion in economic pain from comprehensive bans. In Kenya, up to 90% of plastic bag industry workers lost employment after the ban.
Supermarkets and many consumers eventually adapted. Durable polypropylene or cotton bags, costing $2 to $15, lined up at registers. Small retailers, though, sometimes struggled with higher costs and sourcing new compliant bags. Some analysts argue that simply charging a small fee, 5 or 10 cents, could have achieved similar bag use reductions with less economic shock.
International lessons support this. Ireland's 2002 bag levy led to a 90% usage drop with only a modest fee. English supermarkets report just 2 single-use bags per person per year now, compared to over 300 previously, all from a pocket change charge. The U.S. experience shows that bans paired with education and free reusable bags reduce friction and resentment, especially among lower-income households.
Yet in the rush to regulate, some strange side effects emerged. Studies in San Francisco revealed public health slips. Unwashed reusable bags led to bacterial outbreaks and, tragically, preventable deaths due to foodborne illness. Some vendors seized the confusion, selling compostable or misleadingly labeled bags that were little better for the environment. In Australia, illicit thin bags soon popped up in some local shops, forcing tighter enforcement.
The social sentiment around bans has been uneasy. Early after the bans, supermarket satisfaction dipped. Shoppers joked and sometimes vented seriously about paying cents for bags after spending thousands on luxury purses. Complaints stacked up after bag failures. Woolworths had to recall faulty paper bags with torn handles, adding to the frustration. For low-income shoppers, the cost sting is real. Blanket fees can be regressive, affecting the most vulnerable more than affluent consumers who can easily buy premium alternatives.
So, what's the final balance? Bans worked as intended in the narrowest sense, massively reducing single-use bag litter. That's real progress, and for many coastal communities, an obvious and visible win. Campaigners point to cleaner beaches, less visible trash, and a steady cultural move away from wasteful habits. But the broader ledger is mixed. Environmental benefits are partly offset by greater energy use, water demands, and new forms of pollution from alternative bags. Economic gains for big business haven't always trickled down. And perhaps most critically, the core problem, unsustainable resource use, hasn't disappeared. It's simply changed shape.
Analysts warn that if we stop at shopping bags, we miss the bigger picture. Supermarkets, for example, are still fueling Australia's plastic problem by selling produce wrapped in thick plastic at lower prices than unpackaged goods, nudging shoppers toward more packaging, not less. The battle against waste is shifting, not ending.
Bag bans remain a powerful tool, but a limited one. Experts agree. They clean up a highly visible pollutant and trigger helpful behavior shifts, but don't guarantee a smaller overall environmental footprint. In some cases, well-meant bans simply shift the harm elsewhere.
What does this mean for the future? It means that tackling pollution is about more than a single law or one villain. Rethinking how things are made, sold, and reused is essential. Manufacturers, retailers, and governments must shoulder their part of the responsibility, moving past simply banning an obvious culprit to transforming the entire system of production and consumption.
So, if you've ever fished for change to pay for a bag at the checkout, or grumbled about flimsy handles giving way in the parking lot, know this. You're living daily proof of a policy that changed the country. But let's not kid ourselves. It's only the start of what a truly sustainable future demands. The real solution? It will take all of us, every step of the supply chain, to turn these first glimmers of progress into lasting environmental reality.